You know the feeling. It's that sudden, blinding pain that just hits you out of nowhere. One minute you're crushing a workout, the next, your muscle has seized up into a rock-solid, agonizing knot. We've all been there. It's the muscle cramp. And for something so common, there's a ton of misinformation floating around about what's actually going on.
Oh man, you know the scene. The second you grab your calf in pain, someone chimes in, you need potassium, eat a banana. Or, you're dehydrated, grab a sports drink. It's the advice we've all heard a million times. But what if I told you that advice is mostly, well, wrong? Let's dive into the real science of what's causing those cramps and what actually works.
So first things first, what exactly is an exercise-associated muscle cramp? We're talking about that brutal, involuntary muscle spasm that stops you dead in your tracks, either during or right after you exercise. It usually hits those big muscles that cross two joints, like your calf or your hamstring, and man, it can lock them up tight.
For over a century, this has been the go-to explanation. It's the dehydration and electrolyte theory. And it sounds super logical, right? You work out hard, you sweat a lot, you lose water and important minerals like sodium. And that makes your nerves get all haywire and your muscles cramp up. It's a nice, simple story we've been told forever.
Yeah, it's a neat little package of an idea, but here's the thing. When scientists actually put it under the microscope and started testing it, the whole theory starts to fall apart. The evidence just doesn't line up.
All right, let's get into it. Section 2. Dehydration, an incomplete story. Let's see why that old sweat it out, cramp it up idea is, well, full of holes.
Okay, so check this out. On one hand, the theory says dehydration is a whole-body problem. But if that's true, why is it only your calf that's cramping and not, your entire body? And get this, when researchers compare blood samples from athletes who cramp versus those who don't, they find no significant differences in hydration or electrolyte levels. But here's the real kicker. What's the one thing we all do that brings instant relief? We stretch the muscle. That has absolutely nothing to do with your hydration status, but it works, right? And just look at how impractical it would be to rely on sports drinks. These numbers are just wild. To replace the sodium you might lose in a tough 2-hour workout, you'd need to chug almost 3 gallons of Gatorade. Or, wait for it, over 14 gallons of body armor. I mean, come on, that's completely impossible. Not only that, it's dangerous. You'd be at risk for a serious, potentially life-threatening condition called hyponatremia.
So we've pretty much busted the old myth. Which brings us to the most important question, right? If it's not about being dehydrated or low on salt, then what on earth is actually causing these things?
All right, Section 3, when nerves get twitchy. This is where things get really fascinating, because the answer isn't in your water bottle, it's in your nervous system.
This is the modern explanation, and it makes so much more sense. It's called the altered neuromuscular control theory. So think of your nerves and muscles as having a constant phone call. Your brain sends a go signal to make the muscle contract, and another stop signal to make it relax. But when a muscle gets really fatigued, that phone line gets all crackly. The go signal starts screaming while the stop signal becomes just a whisper. The result? Your muscle gets stuck in the on position. It's a glitch in your wiring.
Here's a perfect way to picture it. It's like a super sensitive car alarm. You know, the one that goes off if a leaf falls on the hood? That's what's happening in your body. When your muscles get tired, their internal alarm system gets really twitchy and easy to set off. The muscle itself isn't broken. It's just getting a false alarm from the nerves.
Okay, so we know fatigue is a huge trigger. But it's not the only thing. It's more like the final straw. And that's where we get to your personal cramping threshold.
I love this way of thinking about it. Imagine you have a cramping bucket. Throughout your day and your workout, different risk factors start adding water to it. You pushed a little harder than usual. Splash. You didn't sleep well last night. Splash. It's hot and humid. Another splash. When that bucket finally overflows, bam, that's the cramp. You've crossed your personal threshold and the neuromuscular system glitches out.
So what's filling up your bucket? The number one thing is usually asking your muscles to do more work than they're prepared for. That's a huge splash of water. But it's not just that. If you've had cramps before, your bucket might just be a little smaller to begin with. Coming back from an injury, that can throw your nerves off. A bad night's sleep? Yep, that adds water. And the heat? It's not just about sweating. It actually makes your muscles fatigue faster, which is the real issue here.
So now that we know what's really going on, what do we do about it? Let's build a smart, evidence-based playbook that actually works.
When that cramp hits, what do you do? Right then and there. First, forget the banana and just stretch. Gently. Why does this work so well? because stretching sends a powerful relax signal to your spasming muscle, which basically helps reset that glitchy nerve signal. Then, once the cramp calms down, take a second, think about your bucket. What might have made it overflow today?
Now for prevention, the goal is to make your bucket bigger, right? So it takes more to make it overflow. This isn't about overhydrating, it's about training smarter. Things like strength training and plyometrics build more fatigue-resistant muscles, and this is a big one, actually training at the same intensity you plan to compete at. You're teaching your nervous system how to handle that stress. And of course, prioritizing sleep, recovery, and good nutrition all help keep the baseline water level in your bucket low.
So let's officially put the banana myth to bed. The science is crystal clear. After you eat a banana, it takes up to an hour for that potassium to even hit your bloodstream in any meaningful way. By then, your cramp is long gone. It's just not the right tool for the job.
Okay, last section. We have to talk about the other big supplement you see everywhere for cramps, magnesium. It's marketed as a miracle cure, but what does the highest quality of evidence have to say? This quote is from something called a Cochrane Review, which is basically the gold standard in medical research. They looked at all the best available studies. And their conclusion? For older adults experiencing regular muscle cramps, magnesium supplements are unlikely to provide any real meaningful benefit compared to a placebo, a sugar pill.
And it's not just that it might not help, it can actually come with some unpleasant side effects. In the studies, the group taking magnesium actually reported more minor issues, like an upset stomach or diarrhea, than the group taking the placebo. So you might get no benefit and feel worse. Not exactly a great deal.
Now, one important exception here. Everything we've talked about applies to exercise-related cramps or those common cramps in older adults. For cramps during pregnancy, the science is still pretty mixed. The jury is still out, and we really just need more research to know for sure.
So, what is the single biggest lesson here? It's that you need to stop looking for a magic potion or a miracle fruit. Your cramps are unique to you. A cramp isn't a sign of a deficiency. It's a signal from your nervous system that you've pushed beyond your current capacity.
So maybe it's time we start asking a completely different question. Instead of obsessing over what should I be drinking, let's start asking, how can I train smarter? How can I recover better? When you start thinking in terms of your personal risk factors and building a more resilient body, you'll do far more to prevent cramps than any sports drink or supplement ever could.